When I used to work in this place, every year the annual report said that GDP was up X% and trade was up 2 times X%, right? That was a standard thing for years and years and years. That's leveled off for reasons that we're puzzling about.
We see that the LDCs together represent less than 1% of the world trade, just 1%. It increased to 2014 and it even decreased now due to the energy prices, raw materials and mining.
In many countries, people have not seen their incomes rise for years, particularly in my country. The gap between rich and poor has widened, with those at the top capturing the lion's share of growth.
People are very aware that they do not all benefit from trade. The rise of protectionism, populism in developed countries show that the problem of lack of inclusiveness is clearly recognized also in the developed countries. Excluding parts of society from the profit of trade will create unrest, protest and division.
I think the statistics are there's something like 1 billion tons of food which is wasted each year, and in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, around 95% of that really comes from inefficiencies in supply chains.
Some developing countries, especially LDCs, are at risk of missing the boat of accessing up and coming in the global value chains. Many countries have now a small window of opportunity of 20 years to reap the benefits and then adapt the economies to be ready for the future, and the future is already there.
We all know that trade is an important enabler for economic and social development in developing countries. At the same time, fact is that developing countries pay nearly twice as much to bring goods to their markets as rich countries do.
A country like Rwanda, the country I work with quite a bit, has to pay about 50% more than border prices to ship goods from the coast of East Africa to downtown Kigali. That means the cost to its producers and to its consumers is much higher than it otherwise would be, and it diminishes the competitiveness of Rwandan exports.
Increasing poor countries' integration into global markets is essential to their economic development and poverty reduction strategy. It gives them an opportunity to benefit from greater specialization, access to new technologies, and economies of scale.
Trade also, in a sense, by boosting the effect of scale of production so that you're not a local industry but part of a regional industry, means you're better able to take advantage of scale. You're able to get to the technical frontiers faster because you can specialize in parts of these regional production chains. And trade facilitation should make that an easier process. But at the same time, that means that if you don't have this trade facilitation, if those trade costs remain, there's another type of risk in terms of countries being left behind. Those that don't get in soon enough or stay out are in fact going to watch their neighbors grow.
Important is that growth is only possible with an inclusive growth.
Inclusive growth is economic growth that creates opportunities for all segments of the population and distributes the dividends of increased prosperity, both in monetary and non-monetary terms, fairly across society.
Inequality, no fair distribution of income and corruption leads to political instability and therefore hampers economic growth.
The book, Trade Costs and Inclusive Growth, Case Studies Presented by WTO Chairholders, is the second book that the program has produced. Second book authored by chairholders. The first one was in 2014, Connecting to Global Markets.
The Chairs Programme was launched in 2010. The main aim of the program is to stimulate thinking between academics, researchers, but also the policymakers and the citizens at large, to enhance the understanding of the trading system, what are the issues, what are the challenges, and ultimately also, to the extent possible, to guide policymakers in their policy decisions.
L'idée sous-jacente de cet ouvrage est de démontrer comment, à partir d'un accord multilatéral, tel que l'accord sur la facilitation des échanges, les économies en développement peuvent davantage bénéficier du commerce multilatéral, tirer de davantage de croissance économique Et la question fondamentale que nous essayons de développer à travers cet ouvrage, c'est de voir quels sont les mécanismes économiques qui permettent de lier croissance et développement inclusif.
Generally, the available literature looks at trade or GDP impacts of trade facilitation, but this book goes beyond those, looking at other possible impacts of trade facilitation. For example, on FDI inflows, attracting FDI, and also on its impact on export diversification.
It's unique in that it's entirely authored by developing country academics and looks at the issue from a developing country perspective. I've read a lot on trade costs over the years. I've not read a lot on trade costs from developing countries' research experts.
Much of the work that's been done to date has been at the global level, and for policymakers, having been one previously myself, we want to formulate those policies at a country-specific level. And particularly what's missing in the literature is a dearth of information about what happens when you eliminate some of these trade costs in developing countries. So hopefully this book will help both expand the set of options that policymakers are aware of, but more importantly, understand what those impacts of those moves have been in particular countries.
This book is very important. It provides much needed oxygen for the debate on decreasing costs of trade and realizing inclusive growth in the world.
I must say personally that there are some results coming out of this book who were quite impressive. I found it absolutely fascinating. I went through it and now I will read it.
There's real value here. I strongly recommend reading the report, and I think the authors are to be commended for really solid, valuable work.
We highly recommend that people pick up a copy of the book, which I think will be available at the bookstore, or download it from the WTO website to read it for themselves.
There are many factors to high trade costs, including infrastructure deficiencies, lack of competition, etc. However, burdensome trade procedures appear to be a significant contributor to those factors. This suggests how important trade facilitation, and in particular the WTO's Trade Facilitation Agreement, is to developing countries.
The outcome of the case studies that was done, at least for the African countries, do actually match the work we have done at the Economic Commission for Africa in relation to the implications of enhanced trade facilitation for trade performance.
So this study that we have been doing, it's about trying to find the impact of trade facilitation on trade inflows and volume of trade. And we have done this particularly for the case of 23 African economies. For these 23 countries sample, we have found that a 1% increase in trade facilitation, as measured by this index, would increase trade by 0.77%, which we think is quite some interesting results.
We've always found out that for things to work, especially back home, if you take the example of Mauritius, you need a champion or somebody that drives the whole process. Because there's no point of signing or ratifying an agreement, but then it's only a few people that understand it, because we need the support of all agencies, of all government agencies. And for them to be able to understand it, then there need to be coordination. Everybody speaks a single language, the same language, so that we can move in the same direction.
One reason why there is some, I won't say reluctance, but it's moving a little bit slower than we thought, is that the countries, the policymakers, they are not too sure at times as well about the real benefits from this trade facilitation. And we really need to get a bit more better data, to make sure that we can convince them about the real effect and the real benefits of it.
The implementation of the single window or the Portal Único could contribute with about $70 billion per year to the GDP of Brazil.
The program Portal Único is a unilateral initiative by the Brazilian government to reduce time delays at the Brazilian ports. This program will have huge impacts for when it comes to trade in intermediates. Yeah? So time is crucial for trade intermediates, especially for global value chains, because those chains, those international supply chains, they depend a lot on port efficiency. That's the point. So it's expected that Brazil, with this program, will increase its foreign content embedded in its exports. And as a result, it's expected that the competitiveness of Brazilian exports will increase as a result of this program.
So any reform that reduces trade costs should encourage vertical FDI to be attracted to the country undertaking the reform.
The last 2 years has actually seen a spike in foreign direct investments in Kenya, which we can attribute to the trade facilitation in Kenya. We found that commonality in language is very, very important as one way of attracting foreign direct investment. And of course, it means that there is need for deepening regional integration. We also found another main finding in our study is infrastructure, quality of infrastructure. This is infrastructure in terms of rail network, road networks, port efficiency, and especially this one to do with port clearance. The use of technology, and especially use of internet. When you make the work paperless, it reduces the trade costs, making it easy even to open up a business, very little paperwork. You can send a question today, and within a few minutes it is answered. So those are the three main findings that we found.
In terms of practically tackling trade facilitation costs most effectively, we can see that many of them are unintended as barriers, or they're frictional barriers. So I think from the business community, traders often see these as the barriers to try and tackle, because no one is explicitly arguing against reducing those barriers.
In the Arab region, the indirect trade costs are very high, and the findings of the study suggest that the logistic systems in Arab countries are very weak.
According to the World Bank, ease of doing business, it takes an Arab firm more than 20 days and 8 documents to export their products through the customs services. This is 3 times higher than what actually exists in Europe. Investment in trade facilitations is quite costly. So the Arab countries should really prioritize. Small investment can be done in what we call soft investment, in making the electronic transactions rather than paper work. So these small investment doesn't cost a lot of money and can be done in the short run. In the long run, probably heavy investment can be done in the port logistics and other trade infrastructure.
Foreign assistance actually works, right? You actually do get payoff from it.
Programs such as the WTO's Aid for Trade initiative can play a catalytic role in making possible trade facilitation reforms.
Perhaps it's worth looking at it from that angle. How can you draw on the Aid for Trade provisions to assist you in implementing the trade facilitation now that is once again established that the trade facilitation agreement will generate tremendous economic benefits to your countries?
L'aide au commerce comme un élément déterminant de l'amélioration du commerce au Bénin. Cette aide a été orientée principalement dans les réformes portuaires en vue de faciliter l'accès au port. Et ceci a permis justement de faire des réformes à la fois physiques mais également institutionnelles. Ces réformes ont consisté notamment à réduire les procédures, à accélérer les procédures de dématérialisation, mais et à mettre en place un guichet unique. C'est ainsi que nous sommes passés le port est passé de 5 jours à 7 minutes pour les paiements. Mais également en termes de croissance du trafic, il y a eu une augmentation de 13,65%. Vous voyez très bien le progrès accompli durant cette période.
Morocco is among the top 10 recipients of Aid for Trade, with the largest aid of trade received going towards transport-related improvements, and has developed a plan of action, which is often used as an example at the regional level for how you could undertake trade facilitation reform. And among its key achievements is the establishment of a single window.
S'agissant du lien en aide pour le commerce et le projet intégré en rapport avec le complexe portuaire d'Angers, ce port a permis au Maroc d'améliorer ce positionnement sur le plan international, parce que maintenant il est considéré comme le 4e port au niveau de la Méditerranée. Il a permis à plus de 600 entreprises de s'installer dans le constructeur d'automobiles Renault. Ce port a un impact aussi bien sur le plan national que sur le plan régional. Des pays du Maghreb, ils essaient un peu de tirer profit de cette expérience marocaine qui a permis, grâce à cette infrastructure intégrée, d'améliorer le positionnement du Maroc en termes de performance logistique, en termes de connexion maritime, et également en termes d'attraction des investissements directs étrangers.
I believe that trade liberalization is important and one of the drivers for economic growth. Excluding parts of society from the profit of trade will create unrest, protest, and division.
Tariff liberalization alone may not be enough to achieve meaningful trade liberalization.
Our study shows that tariff pass-through is only 10% in Tunisia, which is very low compared to other countries. Our studies show that it's actually due to many reasons. It can be control prices, subsidies, and most importantly, the lack of competitive economy. There are few firms that are reaping the benefits from trade, and they don't translate this reduction in their prices. And that's why consumers, they are not benefiting from trade liberalization.
Trade liberalization by itself is not enough. The study provides evidence that lack responsiveness of exports to trade liberalization is due to limited production capacity and the lack of economic diversifications. We are, in terms of world trade, we are the lowest in terms of regional trade. Our regional trade is about only 10% of our total trade. Trade similarities of products is a major constraint for expanding intra-Arab trades. In my region, exports is highly concentrated. If we take exports of gas, energy, and raw material in general, its share is more than 80% of most members of the countries. If we are in a group of countries who are producing similar goods, then there is not much room for trade flows between these two countries. And this is an important factor, explain why most trade is with other regions within the same Arab regions.
Trade cost barriers significantly reduce the potential for diversification.
In the case of the study that we've done for this WTO publication, we look specifically at what are the export opportunities for South Africa to the 39 sub-Saharan Africa countries. And we had as a short-term, low-hanging fruit that those opportunities that are easy to access are about 1,600 export opportunities. That means those opportunities are products combined with countries that South Africa can really focus on in terms of low-hanging fruits for export diversification. We specifically looked at how many opportunities do we lose because of high trade costs. And it was very interesting that we found that trade costs eliminates 40% of the potential export value of realistic export opportunities from South Africa to sub-Saharan Africa.
The ratification of the TFA opens up opportunities.
The European Union is the biggest trading partner of Turkey, which means actually 44% of the Turkish exports in 2014 and 15 were towards the European Union. And actually road transport quotas considerably hinder the Turkey's export capacity towards the European Union. We actually have seen that, negotiating on a bilateral basis, even though, at some stage you could, achieve a, friendly, amicable solution, it wasn't that efficient. So that's why I'm in this piece, in this study, I'm arguing that both GATT Article 5 on the freedom of transit, as well as Article 11 of the Trade Facilitation Agreement could provide as an answer, hence the importance of the World Trade Organization as the multilateral framework, which could work much more and better than bilateral arrangements or regional trade agreements.
The main message coming from this important publication, namely that the Trade Facilitation Agreement can bring real and substantial gains to all parties to the agreement, but in particular developing and least developed countries. In fact, as the case studies in this book show, some countries are already achieving these gains through implementation of trade facilitation measures and seeing real-world reduction in trade costs. Equally important is the message that the full benefits of the agreement will only be achieved if the international community provide the necessary assistance to help countries implement the TFA speedily and fully.
This book is an excellent example of the success achieved by the WCP in enriching the trade debate by strengthening the relationship between academics and policymakers.
For us, the Netherlands, we support this chair program because we feel it's extremely important. We give €2 million in 4 years. And I think as a Dutch, we like the Scottish, we're always looking for value for money, and it's a good value for money.
I'm delighted that the program continues to assist developing country institutions to produce valuable research. We look forward to continue supporting the WTO chairs and look forward to their future research and insight.